This is going to shock you. This is going to shock you. Just told Pat these numbers off the air, and Pat said, "You're kidding me. Listen to the numbers of Afghanistan and tell me we live in any kind of world that the progressives are creating for us where everyone plays by the same rules." Listen to this.
The president, President Obama, has been president for 1/3 of the time the Afghanistan war has been going on. Under his watch, 2/3 of the casualties have occurred. So president for 1/3 of the war and 2/3 of the casualties.
So the casualties are crazy high in comparison to the slaughter that George Bush was responsible for. But you don't hear it. But that's not that stat doesn't go far enough. That stat doesn't really tell you the truth, give you any kind of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, looking at casualty numbers, and again, this is a terrible way to look at this, but you have to tell the truth about it. If you look at casualty numbers, you will see that there will be the best year of Barack Obama's presidency.
Think of this. His best year, as far as casualties,
will be about double the worst year of the Bush administration.
That is unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
Now go play the John Kerry thing last night when John Kerry was talking last night about how, it took, basically he gave the oceans are receding again. Do you have that cut? Listen to this.
Best measure the disaster and disarray that he inherited.
Oh, Jesus.
A war of choice in Iraq had become a war without end, and a war of necessity in Afghanistan had become a war of neglect. Our alliances were shredded. Our moral authority was in tatters. America was isolated in the world. Our military was stretched to the breaking point. Iran marching towards a nuclear weapon unchecked.
Oh, wow.
And Osama bin Laden was still plotting.
Oh, I'm glad he took care of the Iranian thing, because that was
Can we
a
go
concern.
through that? Let's go through that.
Jeez.
Go through this one at a time. Listen to this.
Wow.
Listen to this list.
Yeah, you want to start at the beginning again?
Yeah, start from the beginning again.
Best measure the disaster and disarray that he inherited.
Okay.
A war of choice in Iraq had become a war without end.
Stop. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. It was a war of choice, and it was a war that seemingly had no end. Chalk one up. It's not over. The guys aren't out. We've replaced our troops with State Department troops. That's a much worse scenario, but let's give him that one. Let's just give him that one.
And a war of necessity in Afghanistan had become a war of neglect.
Stop. Would you say we're neglecting it now? Because if he's not neglecting, then he is really responsible. I mean, he's responsible for the neglect, but if this is his plan, in 1/3 of the time, 2/3 of the casualties, the guy is a disaster as a commander-in-chief. So I think you might want to hush on that one. You might want to make it look like it's neglect. Otherwise, it's criminal what you're doing.
Our alliances were shredded.
Just stop. Sorry, what? Our alliances were shredded. I just did an interview with the head of the Knesset last night. He flew from Israel to meet me in Dallas to do an interview. You want to talk about a shredded alliance? Let's talk about the shredded alliance of Israel. Let's talk about the shredded alliance of almost every single ally we have. They don't even know where we stand. Our allies are looking at us going, wait, do you guys change sides? Because I'm not really sure where you stand on anything anymore.
Our moral authority was in tatters. America was isolated in the world. Our military was stretched to the breaking point.
Stop. We're isolated in the world. Our friends don't trust us. Our enemies are stronger. We're more isolated than ever. And what did he follow that up with? We're isolated. We got to go back to it, because this is every single line that he's trying to say, because he follows this up with, and now look at us. Okay. You should probably sit down, because I'm looking at you too. These guys are promising a world that you can only get from Mitt Romney.